Welcome back, data leaders and Python learners. Pandas, the engine of Python data analysis. Exploratory analysis of honeypot attack data. Commands that matter. In Pandas, we are going to start with messy file or messy data. First and foremost, we have to work on the commands that help in reading and cleaning the data. That is the first and foremost activity. For that, we will be using these commands. Then we are going to explore the data. What is the meaning of exploring? Exploring is basically you look at the data from multiple statistical as well as in categorical groupings so that you can find some or build the insights from the data. That is called as exploration, exploring the data. We will be seeing that in action in this video. The exploration can be done with all these commands that you see here. As exploring something, you need to do a lot of work. In order to do the work, you are going to do some manual work also. However, all this manual work will be automated to a maximum level using Python functions and methods. And Pandas data frame object has a lot of methods that will help you to work with the data in a very efficient fashion. That is why you see all these methods that I have listed here. I have not listed all the methods that Pandas data frame contains. I am only listing the methods that we will be using more frequently and that will be helpful for you in the future also. So these methods you need to keep in mind. Okay, that is the reason why I put it here. Also remember that these commands are not going to be in uppercase. It will be all in lowercase. I have put it here, I have printed it here in uppercase because for legibility, not the syntax is not in this way. Okay. Now, next what we are going to do is we are going to head to the Jupyter Notebook. For that, we have to go to the terminal, and in the terminal, we have to start the Jupyter Notebook in the folder where you downloaded from the GitHub repo. So how to download the GitHub repo and how to clone it, etc. I have already explained in a couple of other videos. I will be tagging that also for your reference in this as a playlist. Take a look at the playlist. So you will see the beginning of the playlist has all the necessary introduction. Coming back to the PDF, you will see that this particular link that I am attaching, this is actually the repo location or the repo GitHub account which contains all the necessary data. So if you go there, you can get the data also. Let us head back to the terminal. The server is up and running. So now let us go back to the Internet Explorer. If you go to the internet browser, basically, if you go to the browser, you will see that if you have started the Jupyter Notebook at the right folder in your command in your terminal, then you will see these folders. And if you click on this folder, you will see these again folders, and click on projects this time and go into pandas_intro. Click on pandas intro to data cleaning. We will go to this later. First start by pandas intro to data cleaning. Click on that. It will open a new window. The entire the session actually depends on one of the very good introduction to pandas called 10 minutes to pandas, which is actually part of the pandas documentation itself. So if you go in through this, you will be able to also understand a lot of the ways, lot of the methods of using pandas data frame. However, I am going to explain it using the examples here and showing what things will change. Okay, that is the reason why my video and this documentation is different. So coming back to the introduction, I have already have a separate video where I introduce pandas as a library. You can click on this link and it will go to that video. Do click on that and check it out. Let us start by importing the necessary libraries. I will be importing pandas as PD. So PD is the alias that I will be using throughout this notebook. Alias means that instead of using pandas as a full name, full word, I will be using it as PD in all the locations. It's kind of a Python short form that is acceptable by Python interpreter. We are going to use a such util library for unpacking the archive. The data that we are going to work today is inside the archive.zip file. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to first execute this. In Jupyter Notebook, in order to execute the cells, we can use either run command by clicking this or using Control Enter shortcut key. I'll be using the shortcut keys. Next, I'm going to extract. Okay, before I extract it, I want to go back to the directory where the notebook is. This is the notebook, and you see there is only 4 files. Now come back here and I'm going to click on this. It will take a second or two, and you saw that it completed. And if you come back here, you'll see there is an additional file, and this is the file that we are going to work upon. And if you click on this file, you'll see that it is basically a text file, but which is actually formatted in using comma separation. Each and every term is separated by a comma. There is no space, and at the end also there is a comma. This way of creating the file is called as comma separated values file. That is called CSV. What we are going to do is, we will be importing that file or reading that file, not importing. We will be reading that file, and we will start working with the honey._pod.data data frame. That is what we will be doing in this video. However, before that, I want to also show you some of the basics of data frames. When it comes to creating a data frame, you can create the data frame in multiple ways. Okay, but the most important point that you need to understand is that data frame is a two-dimensional data structure. What I mean by two-dimensional data structure? Whenever I create a data frame, the data frame will create a tabular form. So you see, this is a table with rows. It is highlighting this is a row, and columns. A and dates are columns. So it will create like this. Why am I insisting this? Okay. When you start working with libraries like Pandas, or as we go forward in this series of videos, I will be introducing lots of libraries. What will happen is, lot of the basic building blocks of a data structure will be assumed that you know. Okay, and what those data structures are capable of is also expected that you know. Okay, when a new person who is not aware of Python or who is not aware of Pandas, who might actually look at this video and sees that we are working on tabular data, and we can do a lot of different things, like how we do in Excel, and do it without even touching our mouse and clicking anywhere, they actually feel empowered and they want to come and explore this. And then they realize that, okay, they have to learn a lot. Okay, and then they give up. My major point I wanted to highlight here is that all the libraries, including the entire programming language Python, has been created for solving the problems. Okay, so if you are looking for solving the problems, you have to also solve multiple basic problems also. You cannot directly come to start with data frame and start working with Excel and expect that, okay, you can automate it. In order to start working with the Excel level automation, you have to first of all understand how Python actually works, how the variables works, how the object oriented nature of Python works, and what are the data structures inside Python. I'm not asking you to do the analysis of the data structure. That is not required also. All that you need is to understand how to solve the problem that you have got. Okay, the problem that we have got today is that we have to take a data that is in text format and analyze it. That is the problem we have got, and we are going to use Pandas library for that. Are there any other libraries that the same activity can be done? Yes, there are, and we will be looking into a couple of other libraries in the future which will work much better than Pandas also. Keep these things in mind when you are looking at these videos, and if you are new, do take a look at the other videos that I have put on Python. You can come up to speed in less than 9 hours. The videos entirely are made in a very slow pace. If you can actually speed it up by using the YouTube speed up option, you can actually learn about what my video is telling, and you can directly go for exploring the examples. So that is one of the hacks that I use with other YouTube videos when I learn. So you can do the same thing with my video also. I have initially, coming back to the data frames, I have initially showed some ways to create the data frame here. So it starts by creating a simple list. So you see, how do I know that it is a list? So let me execute first. Okay, let me go back and let me first of all, let me execute let me execute the type. If you execute this type, you will see that it is coming as list. So the simple underscore list is actually not just a name. It is actually the type, Python type, it is list. And if I execute a equal to 5, then I will see the Python type as the type of a is integer. Each and every variable in Python or data structure in Python is actually object. The class object. So what is a class? How the class way of looking at Python variables is very helpful. I have actually taken a separate video on that. You can take a look at that. I will tag that also in this video. It is very interesting video where you will understand how the class object oriented way of looking at the variables will help you to search for better ways to work with Python. Okay, basically the gist of what I want to say here is that every variable in Python will have special capabilities. Like that, Pandas data frames and Pandas series have a lot of capabilities, not just one or two. The capabilities that, just a moment, I will go back. The capabilities you are seeing here, the methods that you are seeing, these are all the capabilities of only data frames. If I come back here, let me go back. If I come back here and if I go to a list, and we have a list here, and for an example, if I say simple list and if I say sort, I will get sort. But if I say sort values and if I execute, what will happen is it will throw an error. It will say that attribute error, list object has no attribute sort values. So what this means is that this list object cannot execute any function by the name sort underscore values. Okay, the same thing, if I actually come here, I converted the list, simple list, into series now. Okay, you see here, I use pd.series and I converted the simple list into series. And now if I come, I will okay, just a minute. Now if I come here and on the simple series, if I come on simple series and if I say sort by values, you will see that I will be able to do that. So if I say sort by values and if I execute, it will execute. And if I say ascending equal to false, it will actually change. You see it is changing. So suddenly it was a list, but once I send it through this bracket around created by pd.series, list became a series and suddenly it got superpowers. This is how object-oriented programming works in Python. Each and every variable has separate superpowers, and those superpowers can be accessed if the variables are in the correct format, correct data structure and correct variable type or class type. Okay. Now let us further proceed. We will get to these examples later. Here you see I have created the data frame, and to create a data frame, again I can send a simple list also, like how I created series here. How I created series, I can use the same thing for data frame, and I can use a dictionary also. When I use a dictionary, I will get a proper table like this. When I use a list, I will still get a table, but the column names will be assumed. So column names by default will be 0. So if I create if I make one more like this, let us see what happens. Nothing changed. What actually had happened here? I am still getting the same value. So if I actually make it one more, let me see what happens. Exploring these things like this actually provides additional value. So now it failed. Okay, why it failed? Shape of the past value is 5_1. Indices imply 5, 5. I did not know anything about pd.dataframe method, okay, and I was blindly sending the data inside this function. So whenever we put any values inside the bracket like this, then we are actually sending those values to the function. But in this case, pd.dataframe, when I actually send the values like this inside the bracket, it is actually creating an object. It is creating a data frame object. How to know whether it is a data frame object or a function? That's a very good question. So if I come here into the empty bracket and if I press shift tab, it will immediately open something called as init signature. Okay, now keep it as it is and let me actually write a function. Trial new data. I am writing this function, Python function, in front of you. This is a function, okay, and return new data, and I am executing that. And now what I am going to do is I am going to say trial, and then I am going to again click inside the brackets and I am going to say shift tab. And you just see only signature here. You don't see any more init signature. And you also see doc string, that this is a string. Whatever I have typed here, this example, this information that I have typed here also comes here also. So whenever it is a function, only the signature of the function will come. Okay. However, if it is going to be an object, then something called as init signature will come. Initialization signature. So that means you need to provide the data, you need to provide the index, you need to provide the columns, you need to provide the data type, and all the examples is also provided here. So if I use any other data here, then it will create an error. So that is why it created the error. Now what we are going to do is I am going to go back to simple list and I am going to create the data frame. This is how you can also explore further. I have given some examples below. These things we will again come to it later. So let me go now and start working on the actual data. So when we work on when you have to input the text file data into Pandas data frame, we need to use read_csv method. So use this command and execute this. And if the file is there, if this file is there, then it will execute. And you can check it. You will see that the data frame object has been created. How to check what is the data inside? You have to just use head. We can look at the first two rows of the data frame using head command, head method that is available with the data frame object. You can look at the columns of the data frame object by using the columns variable that is available with the data frame object. You might be thinking, okay, why this head is looking like a function where we give a value 2 inside that, and if I give a value 20, then I get 20 rows from that. Let me change it to 2. But in case of columns, I am not, even if I try to give any value like that, it doesn't work, because column is actually a variable that gets created when I create the data frame object. Each object internal to it will have both methods, that is called functions in regular Python, and also it will have variables that is specific to that particular object. Object as a whole is like a template. Okay, when you saw how the data frames gets created from dictionary, and also you saw how the series gets created from list. Here you saw how yeah, here you see that, right? When you are going to create complicated or complex data structures like data frame out of simpler data types, these data types get additional capabilities. Okay, so that is what additional capabilities, like able to do execute functions like head, and having additional variables like columns. Columns is specific to data frame because any data frame or a table will have a column, right? And whenever object is created as a table, then having a separate variable called as columns is much more easier to access them. And same way, one more variable that you will come across is called shape. So if I use honeypot data dot shape, and you see that I can actually get the value like this. So it is actually a list. So it's a tuple. In Python, this is called as tuple. So let me give a type check here, and if I do a type check like this, you'll see it is called as a tuple. This is not list. So this tuple cannot be modified. List can be modified, but tuple cannot be. So for an example, what I mean is that 451, 581, 16 is the actual value that will stay forever. It will not change until unless the data itself changes and a new data frame is created. So that is how this value is. But I can actually change the columns. Okay, so what I mean by I can change the columns. So let me actually show it to you. That columns is kind of a list. So you can see this here, right? It's kind of a list, and you can check that also. If you come here and if you do a type check on this, you will get it as it is a list. Okay. I'm surprised. It is saying it is indexed. Okay, index is actually a type of which uses the list data structure inside that. Okay, as of now, you just need to understand that you can modify the columns variable. So to show that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to copy this value. Okay, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to assign new set of values to columns. How I'm going to do this? By changing this. Say instead of locale, I say location. Okay, and instead of local abbreviation, I say local abbreviation, and instead of unnamed, I say unknown. Okay, I'm going to change these three things, and instead of date time, I will say date time new. I will do these things and I will press enter. You see, when I checked the value of the data frame here, you saw all these column types. Now, after I execute this, and if I go and check this now, you will see that I have a different column names. honeypot.head_2. If I execute this, you'll see that my column names are different. You see this, my column names are different. And location, local abbreviation, all the things have changed. Instead of here you see unknown, but here you will see it's unnamed, local abbreviation, date time. So this is how you can modify that. I'm going to revert back to my earlier data frame. If you want to revert back to earlier data frame, you have no choice. You have to read the file again. So if you make any mistakes, like as I came down this discussion, I gave an example like this and I changed the data frame. But once I change this data frame, all the next commands will also start changing. So if you make any modification and if you don't like it, if you want to revert back, there is a way to undo. And undoing is basically you have to go back and read the data frame, read the data from the file. The another one way is there that I will be explaining in next couple of minutes. Let us go further. I am not going to execute this again. Okay, and also I am going to make this as a comment, make this as a markdown. So this will not be executed. So this cell will not get executed anymore. Okay, and I'm going to remove this cell, and this can be there, this can be there, should not be a problem, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to describe the data frame. What is meaning of the describe? Describe basically means to describe the entire data inside the data frame statistically. You see all this count, unique, top, frequency, mean, standard, mean, all these things are the details with respect to each column. So date time has, it's a date, okay, it will not have any of these mean, median, mode, etc. But if you come to source, it looks like it's a number, but actually no, it is not. And if you come to SPT and DPT, these are all the ports. This is the source port and the destination port. Okay, how do I know all these things? This is because first thing, I have been informed that it is a honeypot attack data. So honeypot is related to networking domain in computer science, and honeypots will have the source, that is the host. It will have the source port and destination ports, and it will have a location because the server has to be somewhere, right? So that is how I know these things. And here, even though these ports are numbers, and we can actually see these values here, we can use the numbers both as a continuous variable or also as a category. But in this data frame, we will be using it as a category. Moving further, we see there is a lot of information where there is no any detail about the mean, median, and the various statistics that is shown here. This is all again objects like CN, China, California, CA. This is all words, strings. So that cannot have any of the mathematical data, right? And then comes latitude and longitude. So you must be aware of latitude and longitude. And this unnamed 15 will be dropped. Okay, so this is about describe. And there is one more way to look at the data frame. It is called as info. This method provides how many of the rows. So we saw that there is almost 451,581 rows. Now just think about loading that into Excel sheet and start working with that. That will be a nightmare, right? But in case of Python, you will see how simple it is to work with such files. We actually see that .info provides a lot of information. You see that the column name, you see non-null count. What this means? It means that in this column, in date time, how many rows are non-null, meaning how many rows have values in them. Okay, like this row, date time has a value here, but postal code does not have a value. And same way here, local abbreviation does not have a value. Here the local does not have a value. So this NaN is called as null value. This null value is going to be a headache, a big headache. And this null value can create a lot of challenges if you are going to push this data into database, if you are going to use this data for doing any analysis on any other applications apart from Pandas, because most of the application cannot read null values and it will start throwing errors and you have to clean it. What we are going to do in next 10 minutes is that we are going to see a very fast way of cleaning it. Okay. The major point that we have seen head and tail already, and we can actually look at the data frame using the rows. So instead of using head and tail, we can actually give the row number. Okay, 3 to 5. So this is the way of indexing. In Python, this is called as indexing. So instead of 3 to 5, I can say 30 to 35 also. So 30 to 35 if you give, I will get the value from 30 to 34. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep this in mind, Python actually gives the left side value, but on the right side of the index, it gives -1. Why? Because Python starts with the 0 base. And whenever it is starting with the 0 base, so it has no choice. So think about it. 30 minus 35 is 5, the number 5, right? So it can only give 5 data. So if it is going to give the 30th index, then 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. That itself becomes 5, right? It cannot give 35 row also. Then it will become 6. It will create a confusion. That is why you see that they always use this format. And when you remember this, that, okay, whatever is coming in the left will be provided. Whatever is coming to the left of the colon will be returned by the Python interpreter, but whatever is on the right will not be returned. So keep that, remember in that way, so that you can easily understand the commands or the code written by others. So when you are looking at, why I'm telling you this shortcut is that you can always come to a Jupyter notebook like this and you can execute this command and see what data comes out. But the major challenge happens when you are reading others' code. So you need to understand that. That is also one of the major goals that you must have when you are learning about Python. Next is to get only the certain columns. So for an example, I have lots of columns here. I only want three columns. I can use that using this way of naming the columns, giving the names of the columns, and then you can attach head to it, or if you don't attach to it and if you execute it, it will give all the rows. It will give all the 4,51,000 rows. And if you attach head to it like this, and if you enter, you will only get the first 2 rows. And the next way is that you use loc. It is called as location. Here you can give the rows that you want and the columns that you want. Both together you can give. If you are going to give the column names itself directly, then you need to use LOC. But if you are going to give only the columns as the numbers, then you can use iloc. Iloc is index location. Now you might be thinking, okay, how come host became 1, source became 2, and proto became 3? Let us go back up. It is very simple. The columns also starts from 0. So this is 0, datetime is 0, host is 1, this is source is 2, and proto is 3. As simple as that. And both of these things you can use it extensively. Okay, there is one more shortcut that I wanted to share. What happens in Python or any programming language is that you should be able to see the data as easily as possible. Then only you can take decisions on the data, you can take decisions on how to proceed to the next step in your programming activity, in your problem solving activity. Because I have got a data, this big, it has got missing values. We don't know many of the concepts here. We are totally blind. We don't know what is source string. We don't know why the country is given. What is this locales, which data is important, which data is not important. We don't know any of these things. Then how to make the decisions? The major challenge which everybody faces in EDA, that is exploratory data analysis, is that taking decisions. For taking decisions, you have to explore the data from all the direction. So for that, this iloc and LOC will be very, very helpful. And also looking at the complete info also will show you which is more important and which is not. Here itself we can see, that almost this 4 columns have all the data. All the 4,51,581 has the data. But after that, you see there is no source port here. Source and destination ports are not there. And country, in certain cases, the countries are missing. Locales are missing in a lot of places. Longitude and latitudes are also missing. Postal code is there only for 86,000 rows. The rest of the rows, it's not there. Like this, you can get an overview of the data. After that, you can decide how to deal with the missing values or the null values. Okay. Here I have also introduced a couple of other methods which I will be further dealing with after we clean the data. Okay, as of now, all you need to know is that you can use the drop command like this. You can use the dot drop, give the column name in place. This is one of the repetitively used terms or arguments that you can send it to most of the data frame methods. So drop is a method and you can send in place to it. That means that whatever this method is doing, that will get immediately reflected in the data frame that is shown here. Okay, so let me go up here and let me start executing the data. Okay, and you see that the index 0, once I set the index here, I'm setting the index. What is index in a data frame? You see this black column here. This is actually called as index. It doesn't have a name, but this is the index with which you can refer to that row. So what I mean by refer to that row, you saw that I was using the row names, column names, 5 to 7 here, 5 is to 7 here. Here I am referring these indexes only. So I am referring these indexes. I don't have any row number as such. These indexes are by default provided by the data frame. You don't need to create it. Also, if you go back to the data that we have imported, the data also might or may not have the index. So in this case, there is no index at all. So this 1, 2, 3 has not come from the data. This is inside the Jupyter notebook. So only this will be provided as the data to us. Okay, so this is how you might be wondering that how much detail we have to learn. Programming is also about the level of details you understand about any activity that you are doing. If you understand the files in detail, if you understand the data in more detail and the objects and the methods, then programming around that will be much more easier. But if you miss any of these things, then programming will become difficult. It's not that programming is tough, but understanding each and every details and then managing that is programming and problem solving. Okay, now I am coming here and I am going to drop the unnamed column, and after that if I check the updated HP data, HP is honeypot, HP underscore data, you see there is no unnamed column anymore. And this is where we start filtering the data frame. Okay, till now you saw that I was using inside the bracket. If you go up a bit, I was using iloc, and before that I was using directly this one, I was using the column, and yeah, here I was using the rows directly. Okay, instead of using the index like this, I can actually send the conditions inside this particular square bracket. So what is this condition? So it is very simple. Take this value out and execute it in a separate cell. Okay, let us see what happens. You will see it is returning all true, 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 false, true, 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 false. What this means is, so for an example, it is saying false for row number 4. So let us see why it is saying false. Okay, let us go to updated HP data. Okay, and we are going to see the up to 5. We are going to see up to 5, and we are going to see the postal code column. This is actually a way of exploring the data. Okay, the way you explore this, I'm going to use LOC. When you do this way, when you explore the data like this, you might actually come up with some errors. Okay, you want to find something, but when you do that, you will actually see that, okay, cannot do slice indexing on index with indexers 5, a type of int. What is this even telling? You don't understand anything. Why is this error even coming? Okay, this is because whenever I am trying to execute this command, I need to send this as a list. Okay, first of all, I cannot put it as a separate letter like this. And just a minute. So if I use LOC and if I check that up to number 5, okay, I'm getting the error. But if I remove this and if I execute it, you see that I'm getting all the data. And you also see that on row number 4, there is value here. there is value here. Okay, and if I go up, it is saying that in row number 4, this particular function is returning as false. This is because I am asking whether this is NA. Is NA here is means whether I am asking whether the rows are null. If I go back and if I use a different command, instead of is NA, if I use if I actually use this, it will give opposite. It will say false everywhere, but here it is saying true. What happens in Pandas is that if you use this symbol here, the tilde symbol, the condition will be reversed. So instead of actually checking whether it is NA, it will check whether it is not NA. Okay, so in this case, here this is not NA. There is a value, right? So that is why it is sending true. But here it is actually not NA, so that is why it is sending false. So understanding this will take a little bit of practice. So take a look at that, how it works, and then explore further to understand it better. And when you put those conditions here, when you actually put those true and false here, what will happen is that Pandas will interpret that wherever the values are returned true, only that value it will return to us. So if I actually change, if I execute this right now, it will return all the postal codes which is NAN. And if I come here and if I give a tilde value and if I execute it right now, you will see magically all the postal codes are filled. How? Because it is only returning the postal codes which is having values. All the NA values has been removed. So this is one of the ways to explore the data. As I go further down, the next way to explore the data is using unique command. So by using postal code, using this kind of a dot operator, if my column is a single word, okay, then I can use this form of dot operator. So I can say the data frame name dot the column name, and then I give unique, and I will get all the unique data inside the postal code. So this is another way to check how unique is my data. And also this is one of the ways to check whether my column can be a categorical data or a continuous data. This is a concept which is very, very important. You might be wondering, okay, anything that is a string can be considered as a category, right? But in this case, in this data, even the port here is actually a category. Let me explain you why. If I go here and if I take the postal code and if I select DPT, okay, DPT is this value, and if I click unique, if I check the uniqueness, you see there are lots of unique values, because you see this 3 dot, it means that there are more values, it is not showing it. And if I check the length, if I check how many unique values are there, I can use length inbuilt function, and there are 4042 values, ports. If it is continuous value, then think about it. There is almost 4,51,000 data, but only 4,000 ports are there. 4,042 ports are there. Can it be continuously changing? You can immediately find out that the same value, same port is repeated in multiple rows. Okay, to visualize this is the important aspect of data analysis. To visualize how the data becomes into insight. Okay, by looking at these numbers, you can conclude this is common sense, and it comes with practice. So common sense does not come in a common way. It comes with practice. So only when someone explains, even I did not know this in the beginning, I then started realizing, okay, if something is going to repeat for multiple rows and it is not going to continuously change, then I can consider it as a category, even if it is a number. Okay, This is a very different way of thinking. So see whether it works for you. If you have a different way of understanding continuous and categorical variables, do leave a comment about this in the video. It will be much more helpful for others also. Next comes the decision. What we want to do with the null values. We have seen to check the null values, right? Why did we do that? Because we want to understand what to do with it. Whether we want to drop it, whether we want to ignore it and let it be, or whether we want to change it. Okay. Dropping it should be avoided as much as possible, because coming by with the data is actually tough, and if you are going to drop the data in from your analysis, you are going to lose the insights that data can provide. Changing the data into something else, which we will be looking into in a couple of minutes, is one of the ways. So here what you are going to do, we are going to use fill NA option on postal code, and we are going to give an unknown value wherever there is NA. So just I give this command, execute this, and then if I go and check the data frame, and you see I get unknown here. There is no more NaN. And you can check this also. So all the locations where there was previously NaN, now it have been converted into unknown. Okay, you can come here and also you can check it. If I do this, and you can see that postal code has lots of unknowns. Okay, this is one way of changing the values of the null. And once you change like this, the null values can be less of a problem, and it becomes a separate category. Now unknown is becoming a category. So when you are doing the analysis further, we will see it in a couple of next videos, that unknown itself becomes a category. And then further, in case, assume that I want to drop the NA values. Okay, you will see what happens. If I drop the NA values, all the values in this data frame vanishes. That is because one or the other row, one or the other column in each row is having a null value. So what happens when you say drop NA with axis 0? So axis 0 means row, axis 1 means column. Okay, so when I used to drop NA and I used axis 1, then it dropped all the columns which had even single NA. And when I did the same thing with axis equal to 0, it dropped all the rows that had one NA, at least one NA. If the row had, it will be dropped. So this is very dangerous way of working with the data. So never drop NA like this. You have to be very careful. Let us go further. What we are going to do is we are going to work on the next step. We are going to first of all copy the data. Why copy the data? As you saw here, if you make any mistake, okay, as you are analyzing, and if you make any mistake, and if you drop the row, and if the file is really big, what will happen? You have to read the file again, and it might take a lot of time. In order to avoid that, what we can do is we can actually copy the data frame itself into a null filled data. I mean, the data is filled with lots of null. So I'm just giving the name directly. And then I can run a for loop on type, country, CC, local abbreviation, postal code. On all this, I'm going to I'm going to run iterate the for loop, and I'm going to fill the NA with unknown. So what I mean is that for this, all this values, and including this type, I'm going to fill the non-null values. I'm going to fill the null values with unknown. Let me execute, just a minute. Let me execute this code, and it has executed. And if you check the null filled data info, you'll see that particular columns there is non-null values, actually nil. There is no non-null values. Now we will concentrate on how to work with source, SPT and DPT, source port and destination port. For source port and destination port, what we are going to do is we are going to fill it with 0. Whichever port is set as unknown, I am going to fill it as 0. So I will execute this command. And now if I come and check the info, you will see that all the values, almost all the values are, all the null values have been removed except the latitude and longitude. Now comes the next decision. Okay, before taking the decision, ensure that you dropped this column unnamed 15, because this is going to create a problem if you don't drop it. So drop this column, okay, and then we can actually check. We can right now come and do a drop NA on axis equal to 0. What will happen? Just think about it. If I have done all these things and there is going to be only null values in this row, in this column. Okay, all the other columns have no null values. All the null values have been removed, and only in this two columns there will be null values. And when I execute this axis equal to 0, it will come to this command will come to this latitude and longitude column, and it will find NA values, and the rows that is containing that NA values will be removed. So once I execute this, and it will actually show me the head. So here I have not used in place, okay, and now I am going to use in place, and then the null filled data will actually be without any nulls. So once I execute this, you will see that it is without any nulls. So that is, all the rows are having no nulls, but you see the number of rows have reduced. It was previously 4,51,000, but now it is 4,48,000. What had happened? What had happened is, basically in latitude and longitude there are 4,112 rows, 4,48,112 rows that are having values. Only those rows are retained. You see this? Only those rows are retained. Rest of the rows which even have a single null value has been removed from the execution environment. Okay, this is how you clean the null values. And explanation and all this code might look very long. Okay, what in reality we did was only 4 or 5 lines. So finally I'm going to write the clean data as a file to my execution environment. So I'm going to say null underscore fill.data.tocsv, and I'm going to write it to the CSV file. So if you go back here to the main area, you will see that there is a new file that is getting created. Previously it was not there. So this file got created now, and you can see that also it got created seconds ago. And you can check it here itself directly. If you are using Linux, you can just use exclamation ls, or if you are in Windows, you use exclamation dar, and you can check the file size also. So this is how you actually clean the data. Okay, and if you think that this is very huge activity, believe me, it is not. The major challenge which we faced was to explain each and every formula that was used, each and every method, each and every concept of the method. Once you have written this file, once you have created this file, you have actually crossed almost half of the river. Now we are going to go to the next step. That is where we start analysis actually. Okay, we have not yet started analyzing. Surprised? After 1 hour, I am telling you that we have not started analyzing. I'm partly wrong, because we already know a lot of information about the data. In our mind, we already have a lot of insights from the data that we have checked. But as an analysis, to put it on the paper and share it with the team, we don't have the data till now. Okay, that is how we have to say. I have opened the next notebook called as Pandas _ intro to analysis. And if you click that, again, I start the activity. But, okay, let me start. You will be surprised at what happens now. And I'm going to actually do the unpacking. I'm doing the same thing again, but the entire cleaning activity of the data that comes from this archive is going to be done by this function. And this function is less than 15 lines. Okay, so I will execute this function, and inside the function name is clean archive _ data. So I'm going to give this data, give this function name, and I'm going to give this file name, AWS honeypot, the same file, so which will be available here. Okay, Note that it is clearly written here. After the operation, the CSV file will be deleted. Okay. I'll be using os underscore dot remove method to remove the CSV file, so that it will save me my space. Okay, why this is required? Because sometimes after you write all your data, all your program, you will have to push it to GitHub. And when you're going to push it to GitHub, if there is a huge file like 50 MB file, the pushing itself will take a lot of time. That is, pushing it over the internet will take a lot of time. To avoid that, deleting the files that is not required anymore is very good way of working. So I will execute this right now. It will take a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, at least 20 to 25 seconds. After that, it is completed. So this clean data frame will have the actual clean data. Okay, and if you check it here, you'll see that there is no more AWS underscore honeypot. You see this? There is clean honeypot analysis that I created in the earlier notebook, but now this is missing. Okay, so this is how you start working on the getting the cleaned data, and the entire explanation that I gave for 1 hour is completed in this simple function. This is the power of Python. So what had happened is that all the important commands that I need to execute for converting the messy data to clean data frame was only 4 lines actually. So here I am executing the for loop and removing the NA on these columns, and filling the NA on these columns, and then again on these 2 columns I am filling the NA with 0, and I am dropping this column unnamed 15, and again I am dropping the NA values on the rows. So after all these activities, I will get a final file. I'm reviewing the existing file first thing, and then I'm returning the data frame. This is what I explained in this entire presentation for last 50 minutes. Okay, if you see, why did I have to go through all this explanation? You might be wondering. Because in order to find out which column, which command, which way of iterating over the columns and commands takes a lot of additional research and work and details. All these things you have to find out. And in fact, this particular data that you are right now explaining, I got hold of this data just 24 hours back. So this data is entirely new for me. For me also, I had to explore everything step by step. So this is how the entire data frame, entire notebook you are seeing, this is how I researched about the data itself. Okay, and that is one of the easiest way to work and start upskilling your Pandas capability. Okay, now we have the clean data frame. Now we are going to earnestly start working on our analysis. Okay, you might be wondering, okay, what is there to analyze? You will see there is a lot of information that you can find out. But before that, we have one important task. That is, we have to import date time. This is a library, this is a module that comes with Python, and it has a lot of methods that can work with date and time. At this moment, you have to only worry about this command, okay, and this format. There is a lot of information available in the internet, in the Python documentation itself. You can read about this function in detail there. In simple words, what it does is it takes a date string. This is a string basically. It is having a double quotes, right? This is a string. It takes a string and then it converts it into date time object. As I was explaining continuously in the beginning of this video, the string will have a different set of capabilities. Okay. So for an example, if I say that date string, made a mistake. If I say date string, and if I give the value to that, clean data frame, date time. Okay, the date time you see here is actually the column name. This date time is different from this date time. Don't get confused. These two are different. And I give 0 to this, press enter. And if I come here, I see that I can do a lot of activities like capitalizing, case folding, centers, count, etc. Okay. This is string. Now what I do, I am coming here, I am going to say date object is equal to this, and then I say date object, and if I press a dot and press tab, you see I'm getting a completely different set of methods and variables. That is because that this is a datetime object. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing this is I especially want the date, I want the month, I want the hour, so I can get all the parts of the date. So all the parts of this string. So I can get the date, month, etc. But if you have to do it by using the string, what will happen is I have to use the string object, and I have to split the string object first. I have to split the string object. Okay, I have to split it like this. I will get something like this, and then I can access. So I can say, okay, 0, I can get 3. Okay, and the same way, then I use this and I go number 2, I get this. You see what is happening? Even after I get the day, 13th is the day. So 13th is the day. But I am getting this hour and minute also along with that. So how to deal with this? Again, I have to split it. Again, I have to split this. And I have to again work. Split it like this. So again, I have to split it. Then again, I have to take the value like this. This doesn't look nice. Correct, but this, once you do this, and if I take day, I will get the day as soon as possible. Okay, I'm sorry here, this is the year. The day is actually at the front. So this is the day actually. So this is the year, I got confused. So this is how actually Pandas helps you to, the date time module helps you to simplify your activity. As usual, you are going to work using the backup data frame. Okay, but we are going to do it little differently. What happens is you are going to create a backup data frame and you are going to keep it separately. Okay, you are not going to work on it. This backup data frame will be there. If in case as you go into the analysis, if something goes wrong, then you can come back here, come back to this cell. You can come back to this cell and you can say clean data frame equal to backup df object. So what will happen? If this particular data frame is corrupted, okay, as you work on your analysis, you can come back and assign the backup data frame back. So in that way, you will be able to re-get all your earlier data without any issue. So that is one of the ways where you can avoid running this command again, because you have to run this command, you have to run this function, it will take time. To avoid that, we can use this method. Okay, let me go further. When the next step that we have to understand is that we have cleared the date time. The next command that we have to use is using apply. So there is an option where there is a method in Pandas data frame where you can apply one function, one Python function to each row. Oh, okay, what I mean about that. So let me actually show that. If you look at my data frame, so let me show the clean data frame, and if I take head and if I do 2, so this date time is there in all the row, and I want on each row this date time to be converted into date object like this. I want to get it converted, and I have 4 lakh rows, 4,51,000 rows, and I have to apply this function on all those rows. How to do that? So the easiest way to do that is I can use this format where I'm using something called as apply, and then I'm using something called as lambda. Okay, as of now, I have not explained lambda function in my series. Okay, but what I suggest is that before you use lambda function, I would suggest that use simple functions, Python functions first. Okay, this is a way you can do it in a single line. Okay, you don't need to do anything. You can use it in a single line and complete it. But the actual way how you need to do is that you create a separate function like this. So I'm going to convert string to date time, and I'm going to give the string here as the variable, as the argument here to the function. And then I will convert the argument and return it. This is a single line function. After that, I use the apply method and I use this function. By default, when I apply this function on the date time column, this column, it will automatically change. So let me show you. So I will execute this. It is saying time is not defined. Why? Because I have not imported time. So let me first of all execute this. Okay, I should not execute that. And let me execute this. And now if I execute this, it will actually not tell me anything that whether what has actually happened. So it will take little time, almost 13 to, I think it will take at least 15 to 20 seconds. This time that you are seeing here, this actually calculates how much time it is going to take. So it has taken 14.81 seconds. The start and the end. Start before I started the application of this function, and once it completed, what is the end time. So both of this I found out, and I subtracted the end from the start. So I got the value, the difference, that is 15 seconds. When you actually time, this is one of the ways you can time your functions. So if you see that instead of 15 seconds, it takes 1 hour, that means you are doing something seriously wrong. Forget about 1 hour. Even if it takes 1 or 2 minutes, that means there is something wrong in your logic, or the loop is not ending, or the idea of using this function on this particular column is wrong. So there is some fundamental flaw in how you are applying the logic. So that is how you test it. Test your logic and ensure that your function and your program is efficient. Let me further continue. And here I see I have already applied it. I am just showing some examples here. So what will happen once we apply it and once you check it. So you see that once I check it, you will see, okay, what is wrong here? Data frame object has no attribute date time object. Why am I getting this error? Let us go up. Let us see what mistake have we made. Okay. What has happened is I have not executed this command, right? So in this command, I told I'm not going to execute because I was showing you how apply works. So what I'm going to do, I am going to execute this right now, where I am going to create a new column called date time object. So along with date time, I will get this also. So I will show it to you in a moment. When you execute this Jupyter notebook, you will see that it will execute and show you with date time object only. So let me execute this. You see there is an additional column at the end here, date time object. This is the date time which looks like this. This is the date time object that looks little more different, right? How about this string, and how about this particular object? It has all the data like the date, year, and it's less confusing also. And now if I come here and if I execute this, it will execute. Also one more point, if you want to execute the entire cells, all you have to do is run all. It will execute all the cells in this Jupyter notebook. So here we have the datetime object. Now what we are going to do? Let us actually go and check how to get the month name, day name, week of year, and hour. So I have taken the first datetime object, one datetime object, this value, datetime object 0. I have taken this value and I have attached it to date data. And once I attach to date data, this is actually a date time object. I told you, right? Date data is a date time object. And from that, I can get the day name, I can get the month name, I can get the week of year. that is the purpose of creating the datetime object. So Python ecosystem is so robust. People are working around the clock from various parts of this world to improve the user experience and the developer experience. So all these functions you see, month name, day name, week of year, variable, all this have been written by others and made available for us to use, who are actually developing and who are learning to develop. After this, I actually create more columns in the clean data frame, and I'm going to add the I'm going to use lambda function again here, and I'm going to add the month name, day name, week of year, and hour. And then I'm going to drop the date time column so that I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to check how the data frame looks. So it will take a couple of seconds. Now we have come to a place where our data is ready to do some real analysis to find some good insights. Okay, so we have the date time, we have the if you go a little bit this side, so you have all this information. So on what is the day of the week, when the incident occurred, what is the hour, what is the week, year. So in the entire year, in which week, like week 9 or week 10, this incident occurred. So we can find all those information and we can keep it ready. Now comes the actual analysis and exploratory data part. What happens is that we have done so much till now. To actually get the data ready for analysis itself took a lot of time. But for analysis, actually it will take very, very less time. That is the beauty of programming. You'll put a lot of effort in the details. After that, analyzing it becomes so simple. But if you miss anything in the beginning, if you make any mistakes in the decisions that you take in the cleaning of the data and in converting the objects, like how we did here, if you don't convert the object to date time, and if you're going to keep it a string, think what will happen. You will have a lot of issues managing that in our analysis. To get this value, to get this day name, month name, week of year, and hour, you will have to do a lot of work. I mean, you have to type a lot of code. But here I have not typed any code. I have just given a single single line of code here. That is the benefit of understanding the details and solving problems one by one. A second point is, most of the problems that we face has been already faced by someone else, and they have made a library or made a function and they have made it available for everybody. Like the way I am making the video. So this is kind of the library that I am making, so that anybody who is interested to learn can come, understand the strategies and the tactics that I am using, and they can use it to improve their capabilities. So like that, programmers write programs. Okay, now enough talking. Now coming to the analysis part. When you're going to analyze, the major point you have to keep in mind is that you have to be curious and interested about the data. It is as simple as that. If you are curious about the data, then you will ask questions. In this case, I am asking which pot was targeted the most. You might be wondering, what is pot here? Okay, we are talking about honeypot attack data, right? So I am calling the host here as a pot. Okay, if you are confused, that is expected. So here the host is called as a pot, and where the attack came from. Okay, where the attack came from. So I want to know the IP from where the attack came, which country the attacker originated. So which country is staying, which port he targeted in the pot, in the honeypot, which port he targeted, and which month, week, hour, or day the attack occurred. All these things we can track. For doing that, we will be using group by extensively. Okay, this is one of the most misused method also, and most versatile method in data frame object. So by using group by, you can send the column name. So I'm going to group it based on the host column. Where is the host column? Based on the host column. So what will happen is, it will group all the Groucho Oregon. So like this, there are a lot of Groucho Oregon, right? So it will group all of that and it will count it. It will do nothing else. It will just count it. And after it counts, okay, we can actually see that. We can, okay, let me actually execute it and show you what happens step by step. Okay, this I will actually not keep it executable when I share this. So once I do it separately, and I will show you how the actual execution result looks like. Yeah, you see all the columns, all the column output comes and all the columns are also counted, but all the values are same. You see this? So prototype, SPT, DPT, all are having the same count value. This is because that when you are giving group by, you can actually do something like this. You can actually take SRC like this, or you can say SRC string, and you can do like this also. Now you will get only one value here. But when you do like that, what will happen is the host target will be a series. So let me check it out. It will become a series. It will not be a data frame anymore, and it will lose additional some of the capabilities that the data frame has. So I don't want you to use this method. Okay, don't use this method because it will create a problem to you later. So use this format where I am actually aggregating it, and then I am resetting the index. So instead of doing this, okay, sorry, let me take a copy of that, and instead of doing that way, I'm going to take this directly, and I'm going to do a host target reset index. Resetting the index means what will happen is this index value will get reset. So let me show you. Reset index in place equal to true. And if you see host target, what will happen is you can see that it will come like this. It will come as a full data frame. And in this data frame, if you select only the source, and the host, okay, so if you select only the source and the host, okay, what is wrong here? Host target, I am selecting host and source. Just a minute. So after doing the analysis, I started understanding that the port number 1433, 3306, 445, 22, all were getting attacked most of the time. And I wanted to understand that what applications this port belong to. So I went ahead to Wikipedia and found that there is one page which explains all the details of the ports. So I went there, I used read_html method of Pandas, and I downloaded the page. In the page, whatever the tables were there, it was downloaded as list in our execution in this Jupyter notebook. And then I can use I can use Python commands, list commands, and also data frame commands on those data. And that is how I actually converted that using pd.concat. So in Pandas data frame, in Pandas library, there is a method called concat. So I can concat two data frames. So here you see the data I got from the internet is port underscore data. There is 7 tables in that. I am taking the table number 4 and table number 5. After that, I am concatenating those 2 tables. And I'm checking something here, whether by using hyphen within and giving the string, what is the return value. So why I'm checking this? Because I'm going to use it in this function. So I want to check whether this condition will work when I execute in this function. So this is how we program. Each and every detail has to be checked. And Jupyter Notebook is very useful for that. And I can show it also. And even after checking it, what had happened was there were 2 kinds of hyphens. So this hyphen looks little longer than this hyphen. So what had happened is when the data was downloaded from the internet, I was trying to use it in my program, it was not working properly. So after that, I had to analyze it more deeply to find out what was going wrong. And then I actually was able to properly change the string, this ports into, these are all in strings right now. So this strings, I could convert it into integers. All this logic is inside here. You can actually check it out. And then here you see the ports. It has been converted to integers actually. How I can be sure that it is integers? Because I can sort it by port value and I have given ascending equal to false. So I am getting the maximum port number. This is the highest port number. And you see at the bottom, this is the lowest port number. And also I'm getting the description. Same way, after I get the description, I check, okay, for port number 445, what is the application? And I see it is Microsoft Directory Services, Active Directory. And also there is one more services called as SMB. This is how the external world data can be brought into your analysis. Okay. And the next point is that external data, we can actually merge it with our internal count. We already counted. Okay. If you go above, if you go to the various functions that I had created and analyze the data, I actually counted the number of ports in my ports that are getting attacked. Okay, when I checked it, the top port that got attacked was 1433. Almost 58,000 attacks came to Groucho, Oregon host itself. Nothing else. For that itself, I got that much attack. Okay, so I wanted to understand. That is how the entire analysis starts. And then I did the analysis, went to the internet, and I found that, okay, these are the ports. And now what I want to do next is that I want to connect these 2 tables. The tables where I get the port that is getting targeted. This is something that I found out. And then I want to connect it with the, I want to connect it with the data that I imported from the HTML page. That is the top port description. I use pd.merge and I connect it and I get this final table. So where I see that, okay, I'm getting the maximum attack to this port, and this port is a Microsoft SQL Server database system. Like this, I can give the final final insight to the people who are asking. So this is how you convert a rough data into a complete analysis and insight. Also, there are other additional information regarding Pandas we can use, but this will be much more useful when we are going to use it for visualization purpose. So what I'm going to do is, in the next video where I will be talking about Streamlit, I'll be introducing Streamlit. Let me go back to the presentation. So in the next video, what we'll be doing is I'll be introducing Streamlit. And you can actually take a look at this link where I have shared one of my existing dashboards. I'll be creating a new dashboard with the honeypot data that I am exploring with this analysis, and I'll be making a video around that. In that video, I will be further explaining the additional methods of Pandas also. And in parallel, I will be explaining the methods that can be used in Streamlit library and how we can make the data that you see here as basically numbers and tables, how to make them into charts and plots. That will be our next step in our journey of using Python libraries like Pandas and to supercharge our analysis process. I hope that this video was helpful to you and the content is also useful to you. Do leave a like and do subscribe to the channel so that you will get the notification whenever I am giving new updates to the channel. And also please share this with others who are looking for very in detail way of working with programming language, as well as solving problems using the existing libraries. That is more important. Rather than you typing out everything, you can use the libraries made by others. So that is one of the interesting ways of working with programming. I hope you like this content, and stay tuned for the next video on Streamlit. And further to that, I will also upload the video where I explain the Streamlit process that we follow as an example video. Stay tuned for that, and till then, have a great time. See you guys.